Welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing your health potential so that you can look and feel your best at any age. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 100. Hello, Natural Nation. Welcome to episode number 100. This is obviously a milestone episode. Going to do a little bit of a celebration here. Going to change the format up a little bit. I want to give you some highlights from some of the fan favorites. With 100 episodes in, it was difficult to determine what highlights I should use, but I used the fan favorites based on the number of downloads that you, the Natural Nation, told me which episodes resonated with you the most. And if I had taken a 10-minute clip from 100 episodes, I'd have over 16 hours in this episode alone. So it was no small task trying to choose what clips I wanted to use. But I think you're going to enjoy these clips, and they're going to be, I think, some really good inspirational content. I started the podcast back in May of 2020, and this is October of 2022. And up until episode 74, I was audio only. So I took a break last fall to invest in learning how to do video and to develop a social media presence. And I started back up in May of 2022 this year. So I have 25 video episodes and 75 audio only episodes. And I now have a social media presence. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and Rumble. My handle on all of the social media channels is David Sandstrom Health, except for Twitter. That was a little bit too long of a handle, so there I'm Sandstrom Health. But, if you go to Google and you type in David Sandstrom Health, I'm going to be 10 out of 10 on that front page of Google, David Sandstrom Health. It's going to be all me. So that's a good way to find me. Of course, the best way to find me is to go to my website, davidsandstrom.com. So anyway, there's a lot of podcast shows out there. In fact, I did a little research yesterday. There's 2.8 million podcast shows. And from those 2.8 million shows, they've produced 132 million episodes, which if you do the math, that's an average of 47 episodes per show. And this is an interesting stat. 14% of that 2.8 million shows have one episode, just a single episode. So I've obviously passed that by a large margin. And here's another interesting one. 50% of all podcasts have 14 episodes or less. And that's commonly referred to in the industry as a pod fade, where someone really doesn't know how much work it is. They think they want to start a podcast. They do a few episodes, handful of episodes, nothing goes viral, and they give up because they don't really know how much work is involved in producing a show like this, and how you really need to stick with it for the long haul. So I want you to know that I'm committed here. I told you back in the fall of last year that that break was not a pod fade, and I meant it. It wasn't. I'm committed for the long haul, and I hope you are too. I am grateful for the diehard fans to the show. I really appreciate you. Thank you for your support, and I hope to continue serving you with the next 100 episodes and beyond. And by the way, as long as we're on this topic, if you're enjoying the show, would you tell a friend about it? Because the number one way someone finds a new podcast is that a friend tells them about it. So I sure would appreciate you telling somebody, a like-minded friend that you think might enjoy the show. I would appreciate that. So what's in store for Natural Health Matters podcast? What's on the horizon? When I wrote my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health, it was a book on becoming more whole. It wasn't a book on nutrition, but one of the requests I've gotten from people after they look at the book and they read it, they say, I wish you would have written more on nutrition because that's of interest to me. After all, I am a certified nutritional counselor, but that wasn't the purpose behind the book. I wanted to explain from a faith-based perspective how we can embrace holistic health through spirit, mind, and body, and by becoming more whole, we improve our health. And that's what the book was about. So anyway, my plan for the future is I'm going to make, in the near term, 2 courses on nutrition. One is going to be a nutrition essentials course. Now, I don't know what the name's going to be just yet, but I want to talk about in that course, which is going to be free, by the way, I want to talk about the nutrition principles that apply to everyone, the things that everyone needs to know and apply to their lives. And in the advanced nutrition course, this is going to be a paid course. I want to talk about and address biochemical individuality. And I want to help people develop an eating plan that's unique for them. And that's a little bit more involved. And that course is going to be a paid course. Now, the courses aren't created yet. I'm in the process of building them. And if you'd like to be involved in that process, let me know. Send me an email at david@davidsandstrom.com. Love to hear from you. And you can have a chance to help me determine what content is going to be in those courses, as well as what they look like. And I would really appreciate the participation on your part. And of course, you'll get the free course. And I'm going to be offering a substantial discount to the beta version users to the paid course. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email, david@davidsandstrom.com. Another thing I have on the horizon is on my YouTube channel right now, I have full episodes as well as the YouTube shorts, which are 60 seconds or less. But I don't have any medium length content on YouTube right now. In the near future, I plan on creating medium-length episodes for YouTube between 5 and 10 minutes long or thereabouts to answer specific health and wellness questions. So look for that in the near future as well. You know, when I started the podcast over 2 years ago, I knew there'd be a lot to talk about, and that is proven to be true. And there's a lot of topics, even with 100 episodes in, that I don't feel like have been adequately addressed yet. For instance, our real identity in Christ. I think that could be addressed more thoroughly. Self-love, I think, is a topic that could be addressed more deeply than I have already. Marriage and family, certainly got a lot to say on that. I'd like to talk about supplements. I'd like to talk about childhood trauma. That's something that needs to be explored more, as well as spiritual warfare. So there's still an awful lot to talk about that I don't think has really even been addressed. Some of it I've only scratched the surface on. So there's a lot more to come, a lot more on the horizon. So stick around, and I think you're going to enjoy some of the upcoming episodes. So the first clip that I want to play you is from episode 2. And I think episode 2 is a really foundational episode. If someone were to ask me, Dave, what's the most important episode you created? Or if I was going to listen to one episode, what would you recommend? I would say listen to episode 2. I called it True Holistic Health, and it's really foundational, and the implications are really profound. I talk about the spirit, mind, body connection. I define what spirit, mind, and body actually are. And I talk about the interconnectedness and the interdependent nature of them, of the triune nature of a human being. And I talk about how they're designed to function. It's really foundational and really profound, and I hope you enjoy this clip. Here we go. Today we're going to be talking about a health principle that often gets ignored in many health and wellness circles. And if it is addressed, it's generally not addressed adequately. This issue is often the reason why people fail to experience the health breakthroughs they're looking for. If you're ready to take greater responsibility for your own health, then this episode is for you, especially if you're dealing with some kind of a health issue and you've seen several practitioners and you still haven't resolved what's ailing you. Stick around. You may be very, very interested in what I'm about to share with you today. Because most healthcare practitioners don't understand genuine holistic health. They focus on what they do know, which is the physical. This is what their training has taught them to do. Most of them focus almost exclusively on the body. The body is more straightforward. It makes sense. We can measure things like vitamin D levels, cholesterol, or thyroid hormone. We have supplements and or drugs that can treat those things. They're measurable, so that's what we focus on. This is not all bad. If your immune system is compromised because your vitamin D levels are low, bringing your vitamin D up can help a great deal. But oftentimes, our physical symptoms are not rooted in the physical. They're rooted in the mental, emotional part of our being or the spiritual part of our being, and they cross over into the physical. Human beings are more than just a body. We are a spirit, we have a mind, and we live in a body. Ignoring 2/3 of our makeup when we're trying to build health is folly. When I was in my early 20s, I was living in Fort Lauderdale, and I was a Miami Dolphin fan. I used to enjoy going to the games, and I followed the team. At the time, Dan Marino was quarterback and Don Shula was the head coach. After a game, they had a program on television called The Shula Show. And in the show, Don Shula would talk about the win or the loss and what they did right and what they did wrong. It was a cool show. On one of those programs, I heard Don Shula say this. When I first saw Dan Marino play, I said to myself, this guy's got the best arm I've ever seen. I'm going to build my team based around his arm. And that's exactly what they did. Dan Marino had the quick release. He had the accuracy. He had the wherewithal to be aware of what's going on around him. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And Don Shula made sure that they had a couple of good wide receivers. They called them the Mark brothers, Mark Clayton and Mark Duper. And that trio scored a lot of points, and it was a magnificent thing to watch. But here's the problem. Even though they had a great passing game, they did not have a decent running game, and they did not have a decent defense. And without a well-rounded team, you're not going to win a championship. As good as Dan Marino was, arguably one of the best 4 or 5 quarterbacks that ever played the game, he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. He never won a championship because he couldn't do it alone. The Miami Dolphins couldn't win a championship based on Dan Marino's throwing ability. They needed a defense and they needed a running game. In the same way, if we want to create a championship health-building machine in our bodies, we've got to pay attention to the whole person. We've got to nurture not only our bodies, but our minds and spirits as well. Something else to consider is how we understand body, mind, and spirit. At first, it may seem basic, but a thorough understanding of our trichotomous, 3-part nature has eluded philosophers and theologians for centuries. During my pursuit of whole person health, the existence of these 3 parts to our makeup and the relationship between them emerged as self-evident. Let me explain. The spirit is the highest and most noble part of our being. Our spirits are eternal. It's where we connect with God and experience relationship with Him. It's the home of our conscience and where we discern right from wrong. Our spirits are where we hold our convictions and deepest beliefs. Our sense of identity and self-worth are found in our spirits. Our spirits are to yield or submit to God. Our spirits animate and bring our minds to life. As such, it's our spirits that motivate and direct our thoughts. If our spirits are wholly submitted to God, they will animate our minds in healthy ways. The mind includes our intellect, thoughts, emotions, and will. It's the voice inside our heads or our thought lives. Our minds are connected to both our spirits and our bodies and act as a bridge between them. Our minds are intangible and submissive to our spirits. Our minds animate our bodies through our brains. Our brains are physical organs and direct our bodily functions. Therefore, when our minds are healthier, so is our physical vitality. The body is what we can see, touch, and feel. It is how we contact the material world through our 5 senses. Our bodies include our cells, tissues, organs, and systems. Our bodies are temporary vessels that house our minds and spirits. Our bodies are submissive to and yield to our minds. This takes place at both conscious and subconscious levels. Sometimes we're aware of the connection, sometimes we're not. God has programmed our bodies with built-in intelligence, and health is our default setting. The relationship between body, mind, and spirit is a complex, interdependent one. In other words, for good or bad, what affects one part of our being will by necessity alter the others. In addition, there is a hierarchy to each part of our being. Our spirits are to submit to God and then animate and direct our minds. Our minds receive instructions from our spirits, and through our brains, animate and direct our bodies. Our bodies receive instructions from both our minds and our God-given built-in intelligence. When this process functions as designed, vibrant health should follow. However, frequently this process gets tripped up along the way and we experience negative health consequences. All right, the next clip is from episode 3, and I called this one Real Health. And the reason why I wanted to do this episode was if we're going to be shooting for something, if we have a goal, we have to have a clear picture of what that goal is. So in episode 3, Real Health, I talk about what a truly healthy person should look like and what they should be experiencing on a daily basis. It's good stuff. Let's get into episode 3 right now, Real Health. Real health is far more than the absence of disease. Just because you haven't been to the doctor in a couple of years doesn't mean that you're really healthy. It doesn't mean that you've maximized your full potential for physical vitality. I like the way Herbert Armstrong, founder of the Worldwide Church of God, puts it when it comes to our physical vitality and our physical potential. He says, quote, "You may not be actually sick or in pain. You may have no specific disease or disorder, and yet fall far short of that state of real bodily power and vigor and energy, which is everyone's right," unquote. I couldn't agree more with that statement. So let's talk about what health in body actually looks like. Health in body is physical vitality. When we have health in body, we'll have natural beauty. We'll have bright eyes. Our skin will be glowing and radiant. Our hair will be lush and shiny and not brittle. A truly healthy person will have strong teeth and gums that don't rot. When you go, you'll go to the dentist for a cleaning, but you're not going to be diagnosed with gingivitis or have to break out the drill to take care of a cavity or worse yet, a root canal. Healthy people have strong teeth and gums. Your body will be flexible, graceful, and fluid. You'll have pain-free movement. A healthy person will have strong bones, toned muscles. They'll have healthy connective tissue that protect us from injury. And if you do get hurt, you'll recover from injury more quickly. A truly healthy person will have a vibrant, satisfying sex life. We should all be capable of giving and receiving sexual pleasure. A truly healthy person will not experience digestive difficulty. They won't experience bloating or gas or acid reflux. They'll have regular elimination. They won't experience irritable bowel syndrome, where one day you're constipated and the next day you have diarrhea. Digestive difficulty is quite common, and even though it's common and ordinary, doesn't mean that it's normal. A really healthy person will have great energy. Not too much energy, not too little, just the right amount, kind of like the Goldilocks thing. Our energy should be something we're not consciously thinking about, kind of like our breath. It's just there for us all day long. A truly healthy person will have effortless, productive, enjoyable sleep. They'll be able to fall asleep quickly and wake up in the morning without an alarm clock, feeling refreshed and ready to face the day without stimulants. Yes, I said it. We shouldn't need stimulants to get us going in the morning. Our bodies have a way of waking up by releasing cortisol to help get us started, to jumpstart us in the morning. We shouldn't have to be dependent upon energy drinks and coffee. A truly healthy person will have effortless weight control, kind of like our energy, something we don't think about. It just kind of fades off into the background. Our weight should be something that we rarely consider, kind of like our breath, just there for us. A truly healthy person does not count calories or weigh their food. They eat until they're full or satisfied, and they don't feel deprived. They eat according to their appetite, and they're never ravenously hungry. And a truly healthy person doesn't struggle with unhealthy cravings. A truly healthy person will have a strong immune system. They'll rarely, if ever, get sick, and if you do come down with a cold or a flu, the symptoms are not severe, and you recover more quickly than the average person. And this is a big one. A truly healthy person will experience graceful aging. Now, I know time waits for nobody. We're all getting older. The clock is ticking. The anti-aging industry wants to sell us creams and lotions and surgery so that we appear to age gracefully, but a truly healthy person actually will age gracefully. I believe that we really need to shift our mindset as to what old age should look like. The Bible says in Genesis chapter 6, "Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years." So if someone lives to, let's say, 90 years old, we say, oh, they had a good long life. Well, according to that passage, that person died about 30 years prematurely. So pursuing health and wellness is not only about life extension, although that's part of it. I think we should be adding years to our life and life to our years. And I don't think it's realistic to expect anyone to live to 120 years old today. Our world is far too toxic and our lives are far too stressful for that. But we can experience much more activity and mental clarity well into our latter years. And then we should deteriorate quickly and then die peacefully in our sleep one day. I don't believe anyone's supposed to die of a heart attack or cancer. Those things are not normal. They might be ordinary, but they're not normal. All right, the next clip is from episode 48. And in this episode, I had Dr. David Jockers on, and he wrote a book called The Fasting Transformation. And he calls fasting the most ancient, least expensive, simple, and most effective way to transform your health. And I absolutely agree. It's something, intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating is something everyone should be doing. It's been practiced for most of human history. We've just gotten away from it over the last century or so, but it's very much health promoting at all levels, spirit, mind, and body. It's one of those foundational principles that everyone should be participating in. I hope you enjoy this clip from episode 48 with Dr. David Jockers.
Really with that, one of the biggest myths is just what I talked about, is this idea that if we don't eat every few hours, we're just going to waste away. And for some people, they want to lose weight. For me, I've never tried to lose weight ever in my life. I'm an ectomorph. I have thin shoulders. I'm very lean, very low body fat. So I've never tried to lose weight. And yet fasting is really has been literally a lifesaver for me. I have no idea where I'd be in my life. I'd probably be in a hospital somewhere, if even alive, if I didn't discover this. It's literally saved my life. And on top of that, it's allowed me to perform at my highest level in business. Now I'm 39. I'm stronger and I have better endurance. I recover better, less inflammation in my body than I did in my early 20s. I feel better than ever. And I'm only eating typically once or twice a day. And I feel that good.
That is really incredible. And I'd like to take just a moment here to restate what you just said for the Natural Nation. He's been fasting and he has more energy. He performs better at the gym, more strength, more mental clarity. And if you've never experienced the benefits of fasting, that sounds so counterintuitive, right? But it's true. It really is true. So share some more.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's obviously the number one thing, is that you're going to waste away. Number two is that it slows down your metabolism. This idea that, if you are trying to lose weight and you fast, then your body's going to go into starvation mode. You're not going to be able to lose weight. Now, that's kind of a half truth. The half truth is that if you are on a low calorie diet, so if you're eating, the average person, they say, needs about 2,000 calories a day. So if you're eating 1,200 calories a day, every day, for a long period of time, and you're doing it in a way where you're kind of snacking or grazing throughout the day, it definitely can have a negative effect on your metabolism. All right. So that's not what I recommend. However, what I recommend is feast famine cycling. And when we eat, we feast. And this is really ancestral. So when our ancestors had a great harvest or they killed an animal, they didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have pantries. The shelf life of their food was a lot less. And so that when they had food, they ate, and they ate abundantly. They ate till, they were fully satiated. Right. They weren't trying to just, I'm only going to have 300 calories now, and then, I'll save this. They weren't counting calories. They were eat till they're fully satiated. This is really part of our genetic blueprint. But then they would go periods of time, whether it was, throughout the course of a day or sometimes multiple days, where they didn't have access to food, or at least not much food. And so because of that, our body actually is really good at this sort of feast famine cycling. And when you do that, when you do eat, you feast, that actually stimulates your metabolism. Believe it or not, actually, intermittent fasting actually releases certain hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine, things like that, that actually help with fat burning. Believe it or not, we hear bad things about cortisol. And, certainly we need balance when it comes to cortisol. It's a stress hormone. However, cortisol actually is what gives us wakefulness, energy, right? When we feel really energized, really mentally clear, that's because we get the right amount of cortisol. Without that, we feel fatigued. We don't have the get up and go.
Cortisol wakes us up in the morning. We get a shot of cortisol in the morning, and that's what helps us wake up in the morning.
That's right. That's right. And it's also a fat burning hormone, right? And so we need that. And so when we're fasting, we elevate that. So, really part of this process is really teaching your body to become an efficient fat burner. So doing it right, doing it the right way by intermittent fasting and eating your meals in a compressed time window, which we'll go through, as we go on in this interview, actually teaches your body to burn fat more effectively and actually improves your overall metabolic rate and your hormone function in general.
Yeah. Well, most people will get their energy from carbohydrate because it's a simpler metabolic process for the body to convert carbs into energy. But the problem is when you get your energy that way, it's kind of like throwing a newspaper on a fire. You're going to get a big flash of energy real quick, and then it's going to peter out and you're going to have nothing left. And your body is far more efficient at metabolizing fat over the long haul. So when you're burning fat for energy, you have sustained energy throughout the day. You don't get the sinking feeling at 3 p.m. And you need another cup of coffee if you're a fat burner. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Plus, fat is actually a much cleaner fuel. What I mean by that is when we burn sugar or glucose, we produce a lot of metabolic waste, free radicals that trigger oxidative stress. So you think about it like a car with really bad gas mileage and really bad carbon emissions, right? Not good for the environment. Whereas fat it's very energy efficient. We can produce a lot of energy from a gram of fat. And then on top of that, it produces a lot less metabolic waste. So it's much more efficient. So you get better gas mileage and less exhaust, less carbon emissions, right? So that's really what we're looking for. And then, basically just about all the cells of our body can utilize fatty acids for energy, but the brain cells cannot. And so that's why the body will actually, when we're doing intermittent fasting or when we teach the body how to become a great fat burner, the body will take fatty acids, bring them to the liver, and convert them into a water-soluble molecule called ketones. And ketones are able to cross the blood-brain barrier, and they're an incredible fuel source for the brain. When we think about things like depression, anxiety, brain fog, irritability, things like that. These are all conditions of brain inflammation. And when those things, when we have that on a chronic basis when we're younger, it leads to neurodegeneration, things like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. So these are long-term states of brain inflammation. When we get ketones up in the brain, it turns off inflammatory signals. There's actually something called the neuroinflammasome, which is a group of receptors in the brain that amplify the message of inflammation. It's like a big siren for the whole city. Instead of one police officer chasing one criminal, when you get the siren going off in the city, you've got all these different police officers looking everywhere, trying to find criminals. And so it's kind of what happens in our brain. So when we get ketones elevated in the brain, it actually turns that off. So it turns off this inflammatory signal. It also turns on genes that that promote longevity and promote optimal brain function. So it's a really, really good state to be in for the brain. So somebody like myself, who's very, very lean, one of the reasons why I practice intermittent fasting is because I want lower levels of inflammation in my body and especially in my brain, so I can really think sharply and clearly, have phenomenal energy, be more creative and more productive. I'm not looking to lose weight, which many people are, and that's great. I'm looking for high level performance, and intermittent fasting turns on these ketones and really allows me to be able to perform at my best.
Okay, the next clip is from episode 61, and I called this one Wired for Relationships. And this was an episode that was part of my 18-part series on the spiritual component of health. And I talk about here on how we're wired for relationships, and God created us to be in loving relationships. And if we live our lives contrary to that, our health will suffer as a result. So being in healthy, loving relationships promotes health, But on the flip side of that, when our relationships are floundering and we're not in connectedness with other human beings, it's detrimental to our health. So this is a really important episode. I hope you enjoy this clip from episode 61, Wired for Relationships. The Bible says, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." From the very beginning, mankind was designed to be in relationships. The Bible is God's revelation of himself to the human race, and we should take notice that it opens and closes with weddings. In the very first chapter of the first book, we see the wedding of Adam and Eve. Likewise, in the very last chapter of the last book, we see the wedding of the Lamb and his beloved. God himself is a relational being. We see this in the statement, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." Notice the use of the plural pronouns us and our. God has always enjoyed relational connectedness with himself through the Trinity. We are created in that great image. We're chips off the old block. We're created as relational beings as well. As such, God pursues relational connectedness with us. The Bible is full of stories that illustrate God's relentless pursuit of his people. God isn't looking for subjects. He's looking for lovers. Greater love has no one than this, that one laid down his life for his friends. John 15:13. But God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Romans 5:8. We love because he first loved us. 1 John 4:19. When we enjoy the fruits of relational connectedness, we're honestly doing what we're designed to do. As a result, we promote health and well-being. Adam seemed to have it all. He was the first human being. He was created and placed in the Garden of Eden. He had a paradise for living conditions and a close, connected relationship with God himself. He spoke with him face to face. However, God declared that it wasn't good that Adam be alone. This wasn't because God couldn't supply all of Adam's needs. The answer to the question, why was it not good for Adam to be alone, is twofold. First, because Adam was wired for relationships, he had emotional needs that were God-ordained to be met by other human beings. Next, and perhaps more importantly, Adam needed someone to give his love away to. If you haven't already listened to the last episode, number 60, on the power of love, you might want to go back and listen to that one now, because we take a deep dive into what it means to embrace the kind of love God offers. We can only complete God's design for love by first receiving love from him, then freely giving that love away in service to others. That's why it was not good for Adam to be alone. He needed someone to give his love away to. Modern science is confirming that this ancient biblical declaration to pursue relationships is good for our health. We find in a study published in the American Journal of Epidemiology that married people have significantly longer lifespans than single people. This was a large, long-term study, and the researchers found that lifetime single men die up to 17 years younger than married men. Women didn't fare much better. Single women, under the worst-case scenario, die up to 15 years younger. Now, this study on lifetime single people is significant because it was a meta-analysis, which means it's a study of studies. It covered 60 years, 95 publications, 641 risk estimates, and over 500 million people. That's no small study. And furthermore, this study includes all marriages, not just good ones. In a related study published in the Harvard Health News, we find this, quote, "Data from more than 309,000 people found that lack of strong relationships increased the risk of premature death from all causes by 50%, an effect on mortality risk roughly comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day and greater than obesity and physical inactivity." That's worth repeating. A lack of relational connectedness is bad for our health, and it's on par with smoking a pack of cigarettes a day and worse for our health than obesity and sedentary lifestyle. I'm going to put links to these studies in the show notes because I want you to look at them. Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/61, And you can click on the links there and read up on these studies on your own. I encourage you to do that because this information is actually hard to believe. I want you to read it for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. It's time the health and wellness industry started recognizing the biblical encouragement to pursue relationships. All right, the next clip is from episode 66, and this one I called Fear, Anxiety, and Worry. Again, this is one of the most downloaded episodes that I created, and apparently a lot of people are suffering with anxiety and worry, and especially through the COVID pandemic. This was a real issue for people, and I believe it still is today. So I get into some of the specifics further on in this episode, but I couldn't include it all in this clip. So anyway, in this clip, I describe in a general way how we get into experiencing fear, anxiety, and worry, and what we can do to get out of it. But if you want to know all the specifics on how to recover from an issue with anxiety or worry, you'll have to listen to the whole episode. There's a lot of Bible verses in here. It's a really important episode. Episode 66, Fear, Anxiety, and Worry. Here we go. As with most spiritual battles, God offers us real peace, and Satan offers us cheap counterfeits. Fear, anxiety, worry, and control are poor substitutes for the peace of God available to us through faith. God's primary antidote for fear is faith. Fear and faith are similar in that they both look to the future. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That's found in Hebrews 11:1. Faith says, I'm not alone. God's got me covered. Fear says, I'm on my own. I need to take matters into my own hands. To be the masters of fear, we need to believe God and take him at his word. God is all-knowing and in control, and he's never fearful. Here's a few verses that support that notion. Oh, the depth of the riches both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and unfathomable his ways. For who has known the mind of the Lord, or who became his counselor? That's Romans 11:33 and 34. He placed his right hand on me, saying, do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. Revelation 1:17. The Lord is the one who goes ahead of you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. That's Deuteronomy 31:8. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That's Joshua 1:9. For I am the Lord your God, who upholds your right hand, who says to you, do not fear, I will help you. Isaiah 41:13. Cast your burden upon the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. That's Psalm 55:22. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. That's Matthew 28:20. Isn't it comforting to know that God is in control and we're not? I need to be reminded of God's promises like this now and then. Just hearing those verses right now brings me a sense of peace. We must recognize that when we're serving fear, we're not following after God. There is no neutral when it comes to this battle. We're either serving God or serving Satan. God wants truth and freedom for us. Satan uses lies and deception to keep us bound. Satan wants to use fear to disempower us, block love in our lives, and rob us of our peace. God has a different opinion on the matter, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. That's 2 Timothy 1:7. When fear is in control, it's paralyzing. It disempowers us. We stop doing the things we once enjoyed and fail to take risks that are out of our small comfort zones. Also, when we're focused on the object of our fear, we're distracted from the objects of our love. When angst or fear is in control, we're worried about what's going to happen to us. Remember, God's agape love is others-centered. If we're going to model God's agape love, we've got to get the focus off of ourselves and on to others. Fear prevents us from doing this. Not only that, it takes courage to give our hearts away entirely in love with abandon. Therefore, we cannot give and receive love effectively when we're in fear. All the while, our minds are attacked with a lack of peace. That chaos can destroy our health. All right, the next clip is from episode 73, and I called this one Making Fitness a Priority with Chad Austin. Chad Austin is a fitness expert, and he owns a health club. He calls it Priority Fitness, and he's the author of the book series Make Fitness a Priority. And motivating people is his specialty, and he helps people commit to a fitness lifestyle over the long haul. And he has a lot to say on motivation and staying committed to health and wellness for a lifetime. Chad was a great guy, one of the most popular episodes I did, and I get a lot of comments and positive feedback from this episode with Chad Austin. So enjoy this clip from episode 73. Chad, welcome to Natural Health Matters.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
I'm excited to talk with you. This is a really good topic because I don't know a single person that's tried to get in shape and lost, been motivated for a couple of weeks, lost interest, and go back into their old lifestyle. So you're an expert in not only fitness, but helping people stay with it for the long term. And I know you wrote some books on that topic. So tell me about your inspiration for the book. Why did you write your book series?
When I wrote my first book, Make Fitness a Priority, How to Win the Fight Against Your Excuses, I'd been kind of circling around. I wanted to make more of an impact, and I knew I was going to write about fitness and have been getting long-term success. But to get direction, I did a poll, and my poll question online was just, what are your top priorities in life? And I asked as many people as I could this question. And the top answers were always family and career. And sometimes faith was a popular answer too, but family and career were always the top ones, but never anyone said health and fitness. It was like the last thing, and no one ever said it after everyone I asked. And it was mind blowing to me. And after a little more research, I've done a lot of research on this now, and I've just kind of realized that fitness in our minds is always the thing we plan to get to later.
Right.
Like as life's changes happen and as we have to keep adapting to change, we're really good at adapting to change when it comes to our family, our career, our faith. We're terrible at adapting to it when it comes to our fitness. So in our minds, fitness is always the thing we're going to get to later when we think we're going to be less busy and have more time. And the sad thing is that just that day never comes. And so we just have to learn that even though we're busy and we have all these challenges and obstacles we face every day, we can still make fitness a priority right now. And if we choose to do that, we can make our lives better.
Absolutely. That really strikes a chord with me because, I believe that we should be living the abundant life. And I've met very few people that I would say are really living the life that they were designed for, that purpose-driven life. And fitness is a big part of that. If you're struggling with a health issue, you don't have the energy to face your day, you're not sleeping well, or you're dealing with aches and pains or some type of digestive issue, these are going to really distract you from living life to the fullest. And I love what you said about it not being urgent. I think it was Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, the funny thing is the urgent things in life tend to not be so important. And the important things in life tend to not be so urgent. So you're trying to flip that around and say, let's make this a priority so that we can enjoy our lives more fully.
If you're someone who's trying to make fitness a permanent part of your life, and one thing that you need to know going into it is that there's nothing about making fitness a priority in your life that means you have to be perfect. And if that's what you can't strive for that because we're human and we're going to make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen all the time. Whenever you fail, that doesn't end your fitness journey. That doesn't end your goal. What you have to remember is it's what you do next that counts. So failing's part of your fitness story, fitness journey. It doesn't have to stop you. It doesn't define you. What defines you is how you respond and how you get back on track.
Okay. The last clip is from episode 90, and this is called How to Resolve Migraines Naturally with naturopathic doctor Tanya Painter. She is very like-minded. She's a naturopath like myself, and she has a practice where she helps people get over migraines, not just treat their migraine symptoms and not just reduce the frequency, but actually get over their migraine issue. And she has a 91% success rate in resolving migraines with people. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And she does it by using a whole person approach, spirit, mind, and body. And we're very like-minded, and I thought I'd include this as the last clip because it's an example of what this approach to health can do for you. So I hope you enjoy this clip with Dr. Tanya Painter, episode 90. Just speak to the idea of how a naturopath goes about even starting off with a patient that has 20 migraines a month.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, we want to use every tool available, right? A lot of people think that as a naturopathic doctor, you're very anti-medicine and, you don't want to do medications. And while it's true, there are some medications that are not great, there are others that are amazing. So we want to make sure that we're using all tools, and then we approach things from a whole body perspective. And what that means is, there is so much research out there on migraines and all of the different things that contribute to somebody with migraines. So we know that there's some genetics. We know that there's neurotransmitter imbalances. We know that there's hypersensitive pain pathways involved. We know that there's some cellular dysfunction that's happening that's contributing. And I can list, I have a list of about 50 or 60 different things that research has shown is connected or correlates with an increased migraine pattern. So I've compiled all of that over, the last decade of treating women with migraines and really started to understand kind of the big picture of what's going on. So we look at hormones, we look at the neurotransmitters, we look at how the genes are functioning. There's a lot of lifestyle stuff that we need to learn because we live in a very toxic world with a lot of chemical exposures, a lot of synthetic fragrances and cleaning products and things that we just don't really think about because it's just how we do stuff. But somebody with a migraine body has to be a lot more aware of those kinds of things. So we really help our clients to understand, all right, what are they being exposed to that's not helping their situation, but then also evaluating their biochemistry to understand what is out of balance across the entire body, not just, as I said, not just endocrinology, not just gastroenterology, not just neurology, but all of it, and then putting it together in a particular combination for that individual, understanding that they're not all going to have the same issues, but they have their unique collection of issues. And we need to figure out what those are for them, whether it's a hormone, neurotransmitter, and genetic imbalance, whether it's a detoxification and nutrient depletion issue. We have to figure out that unique combination for that individual. And that's one of the reasons why migraines can be so hard to treat, is because it's not a one size fits all thing. It's a very individualized understanding of that person's imbalances.
Yeah. So has it been your experience that most of the patients that come to you, they've been to a medical doctor and been on some meds and it hasn't worked, and that's why they find themselves in your office? Has that been your experience?
Yes, it has been. The statistics show that about 40% of people with chronic migraines don't respond to medication well. So they're considered uncontrolled. And that's a really high percentage, right? So it's usually the women that have been to all the different doctors. They've a lot of times been to, some of the really prominent medical facilities in the country, and they just still have not been able to figure out what's going on. The devices don't work for them. The supplements they hear don't work for them. All the different modalities don't work for them. And it's a matter of putting all of them together in a specific combination for that person. But it takes some investigation work, right? We need to really dig deep to figure out what's going on with their body and working on adjusting things for them.
Right. The functional or holistic practitioner has to put their detective hat on and do a little detective work to find out where's the root here, not just treat symptoms, which is appropriate at times, right? If someone's really, really suffering, they might need some symptom relief. But over the long haul, we need to look at holistic principles. And I wrote a book called The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health. And it's my contention that we maximize our health potential, no matter what we're dealing with, by aligning our lives more fully with God's natural design for spirit, mind, and body. And it sounds to me like that's pretty much your approach. You look at a whole person approach. Human beings are spirit. We have a mind or a soul, and we live in a body. And when we start to look at a comprehensive approach to healthcare, we can't afford to ignore any part of a human being. They're all important. All right. I hope you enjoyed those podcast clips. That was just some of the highlights, really just scratched the surface of what's in those last 100 episodes. There's a boatload of good content there. I encourage you to go back through the archives, go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/podcast, and there you can search the archives and you see something that looks interesting. Go ahead and click on it and listen to some of those back episodes. There's some really good stuff on there. There's some shows that are doing current events or politics that a week later after they're published, it's old stuff and it gets stale. Well, this information, every episode I've got is timeless. There is no time frame. There's no expiration date to this information. So I encourage you to go back and search the archives and listen to some of those older episodes. They're really good. I think you'll be blessed by doing it. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.